Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley, and today this video is about prepping. I think there's a stigma and negative connotation for preppers. A lot of folks make a parallel between like white supremacy and prepping, but I just want to say that I think everyone should be preparing for things that are coming, things that are already happening. And I just want to share some of the things that I do and some of my experience with this. I've been prepping for about 6 years. Ever since Trump got elected, I knew some shit was about to go down. I'm also a psychic, so I get prophetic dreams. So I've seen some shit that's going to be happening. And so it makes me feel prepared and safe to do what I can with what I've got to just make sure my family and I are going to be okay. I think that there are varying degrees of prepping, from zombie apocalypse to natural disaster or system shutdown, which we've seen in the past year. There's also unhealthy ways of prepping, like hoarding goods when that's not necessary, just making sure that you have enough for you and your family, food, water, things like that. I think there's an underlying understanding too of knowing that in needs of using your prepping, the bottom line isn't like living a lavish life. It's ultimately survival. So to make that as comfortable as possible, but also knowing that like luxuries are not something that you should be hoarding. I also, there's lots of different scenarios that prepping can be used for and be good for, and I think that in my experience, prepping is not just about physical and material things to have on hand. It's also about mental preparation, emotional preparation, spiritual preparation, and like just this full understanding of being in these spaces of needing to resort to survival, right? If a lot of folks haven't ever had to be in survival mode, if you've never had to be in your primal instinct to ensure life, then that's it's a big hindrance on your mental and emotional state. So I want to just let that be known, is that mentally prepping is to alleviate as much panic and fear and stress as possible, knowing that you have what you need to survive, right? Preparing emotionally for the loss of your other material goods and only having the things that you do need to survive is also an incredibly important part of prepping. It's a grieving process. It's a grieving process that we've all been collectively undergoing for the past year of losing what we had that was normal for us, the normal life. And so prepping is just preparing now in the present for your future self and for future things that could come up. I have kittens in here that are fucking with my camera. Anyway, guys, stop. So, like I said, I gave a couple examples. So it's like this giant spectrum, right, of things that could happen and things to be prepared for. And again, I've been doing this for years. So some of the things I talk about on this list are going to be things that a lot of people won't be able to obtain. So my goal here is not to instill fear, but to really give you an understanding of like what prepping can do, and just to ensure that you have what you need for your family, especially if you have kids. Make sure that you have food and water and first aid and entertainment, things like that for children. If you're in an apocalyptic event or in the worst case scenario, it's really important to remain as calm as possible, especially as a parent, and, explain and have your children be in this place of like knowing that they're safe. Things might be different, it might not be how things are every day, but knowing that they will be okay. And as a parent, it is, you know, our responsibility to ensure that for our children. I've had the privilege of being homeless, and yes, you heard me right. I do consider it a privilege because I learned so much, and because of that, I know what it's like to live on the go and to have to only have a limited amount of things at a time, and so that's actually really served my prepping journey as well. So I just want to put that out there. I know there's lots of stigmas and things, but whatever, I don't care. So there's different ways of prepping. If your ultimate goal is, you know, just to avoid what happened in Texas or to avoid what happened at the beginning of the pandemic when we saw that things were being hoarded and people didn't have access to things, there were limits and rations put on things that you could buy. What's coming is going to be worse than that, which is why I'm making this video. It's incredibly important that people, I don't know if I've tried to record this a million times, but there's an invincibility complex, and if you really don't feel like this can happen to you, you really need to check that at the door, because it absolutely can. Now, what we've seen with government shutdowns, with the electrical grids, with the internet, corporate shutdowns, all of these things are being tested at this time to create widespread panic and to also see how much people can take, honestly. And also, if you're not learning from these things, if you really feel like these things are flukes, I would advise you to do a little bit more looking into tactics and strategies of war, especially that the US has done to other countries. And again, know that if you've never experienced that, then you do have a privilege that not a lot of people in this fucking world have. And so, yeah, I don't know who needs to hear that, but it needed to come out. So anyway, yeah, there's varying degrees. You want to prep for long term or short term. Again, as doing this for 6 years, I have a lot of different things. I started with like tactical and survival gear, so you know, I'll go over a couple of these things. So there's different like categories of prepping. So again, that first one is tactical gear or survival gear. Literally what you would need to like survive a really harsh moment in time, right? Then you have just like basic survival. You have like your comfortable survival stuff, and then just, yeah, I don't know. What are your personal goals for surviving? So, like, back up to tactical gear. Again, there's varying degrees within these categories as well, right? Like, I don't have a zombie apocalypse hideout that we would be safe. I don't even have a gun. But I do have self-defense stuff that I'm comfortable using, and things that I'm comfortable with if I needed to. So I would advise you to do that as well. Self-defense items, weaponry that you are familiar with and that you are comfortable with and having in your house. Your self-defense is going to be huge, especially if people, especially if people start going after each other, which is another part of prepping. It's important to have like kind of a little team where you can all exchange things, or like I've talked about this in a different video too, of just having groups of folks that offer different skills so that you don't have to do everything yourself. You know what I mean? So tactical gear can look like a lot of camping stuff. A lot of folks refer to the shit hitting the fan in the bug out bags, and in your bug out bag you don't want to have heavy shit. You don't want it to be too heavy for you to carry. But you would want to have water, you'd want to have your food, you'd want to have first aid, some sort of flashlight, a compass, or like a compass, but also one of those a headlamp. You want to make sure you have extra batteries, but again, you don't want to overweigh yourself. So yeah, and then you'd want some tools that you can use for you know, fishing, hunting, gathering, whatever you'd want. So, I mean, there's tons of videos on this, but I just kind of want to talk about like the overall what you can do to prepare for this. And like I want to talk about the political aspect too, that what the United States is experiencing right now is a strategy and tactic of war. They are honing in on the panic and fear that they've instilled in people for the past 2 years, and they are using rhetoric about dark winter, you know, the supply chain. None of that was in our lexicon, our collective lexicon, until a few weeks ago, and now everybody's talking about supply chain, supply chain, supply chain. And so it's important to get ahead of this stuff and to really recognize it for what it is. These are warnings, and if you're not getting prepared, you're not going to make it. You're going to have to rely on the powers, and then in turn they're going to enslave you even more. And it's not about, something very important that I need to say within this is that this is not about the divisive tactics that we've been using, the division within our collective. This is about them versus us, and regardless of your status, you're part of us. If you are not, you know, and a way that people can think about this is like, if you don't believe you're oppressed or you haven't experienced oppression like other people, you're not being hunted down in the fucking street, but you pay bills. So know that who you paying your bills to are part of your oppressors, okay? Just know that if you're not receiving the money for electric, the money for gas, the money for, if you're not that person collecting that bill, I want you to know that you're a part of this, and you need to prepare for what is coming. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to open up your consciousness to know that there is danger, that you can prepare. And that's what prepping is all about. It's about being prepared so that when these things happen, like what happened in Texas last year with the electrical grid going down, people with these beautiful big houses never thought these things would happen to them, and they were completely flooded. You know, these folks had nowhere to go. All the grocery stores were empty, and we're seeing this. If you're on TikTok, you might not be on this side of TikTok, but I highly recommend that you follow Prep Talk, you know, Spiritual Talk. There's so much conversation about what's coming, and if you're still just focused on getting to life back how it was before the pandemic started, then this video is something that can help you. All right, so with that said, water and food are the most important things. Now, you know, it's important. What we do is we're paycheck to paycheck. So what I do is every time we go to the grocery store, every time we do our grocery shopping, I just put, you know, $10, $15 into getting a few extra items that we can keep on our shelves. Oh my God, this cat. Yeah, bye. Okay. Get a couple of different items, you know, canned food, rice, beans, a couple extra gallons of water. Again, you don't want to hoard, but when you do it like this, and when you've been preparing this long, this is the most efficient way, in my opinion, with what I can do. This past month, I was able to get a vacuum sealer for food, for grains, and a food dehydrator to make our own dried fruit, dried veggies. You can actually use frozen fruit and vegetables in the dehydrator. So those are big investments that I chose to make because ultimately my goal is to be more self-sufficient and sustainable. And so I was able to make those investments this past week. I also got like, something for me is because I have a newer car and it's computerized. And so a lot of folks are talking about if they pull, they being the powers that be, right? Those folks that we pay our bills to. If they pull the electrical grid or fuck up the computer systems, our cars are not going to work. So for me, it's because I have a child, we have alternative transportation. We're not going to be able to do like, you know, an out-of-state trip with it, but it's important to have different means. For me, that helps me not panic. And I think I spoke about this, that the mental preparation and the emotional preparation is just as important as the physical. And I have been through some shit, all right? I've been tortured, I've been incarcerated, I've been tied, you know, I've been through some shit. So I have been in this survival mode. And I want you to know that you will burn out if you are running on adrenaline alone. That will not be sustainable. But preparing for this inevitable collapse or whatever is coming, whatever these people are hinting about, will allow you to have space to move. And on that same note, organizing and being organized in your prepping stuff is incredibly important. Keeping all your batteries in a place, keeping all of your other stuff, you know, I like to use these little bags, like they're cosmetic bags mostly that I get from the thrift store. They're, you know, they're like that big. But, you know, I have different bags for different things. First aid, natural medicines, you know, hygiene products in one, batteries in another, pepper spray, and, you know, a switchblade knife, a Leatherman, a compass, and, you know, all of these different categories, which is what I started to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I tried to record this a bunch of times, so I don't know what I've said in this one video. Sorry, my bad. But anyway, so just being incredibly organized and being your friend in this process, right? I think I mentioned it, but your present self is preparing for your future self in a time of crisis, okay? That's what it is. You're preparing for a time of crisis, whether it's national or natural disaster, a government thing, what we're seeing with the supply chain. Just don't sleep on this shit, okay? Get yourself a couple extra bags of food. Really prepare for what you need. I have a couple different solar generators that have lighting, and you can find this shit online. And again, if you're just starting, I would look around your house and see what you already have. That's super important. You know, there's lots of stuff that you already have. But if you are looking to make bigger investments, you can hit my email and I will send you a list with these different categories and like a checklist of things that you can start to get. You know, we have camping gear. I keep camping gear in our car just in case we have to do that. We have a tent. We've got air mattresses, and again, these are things that aren't really essential to survival, but because I have a child and I spoke on that, is like making it as comfortable for them as possible, making sure you have toys and entertainment for them. Even if you're in a fucking state of survival, your children are going to need those things, right? So just making sure you have that. Get yourself a 5-gallon bucket in case you can't use your toilet, or you're on the road, or you gotta leave a situation. And this can go for evacuations, which we've seen with wildfires and floods and all of those things. All of these things are combined within being prepared and prepping. You know, now that winter's coming, you're going to want to ensure that you have winter clothing, lots of socks. Wet socks will cause you to get cold if you can't change those, so you want to ensure that you have dry socks. What else? I'm thinking about, I have a lot of my shit in my car. Oh, I've got like 2 of those 6-gallon water jugs. I have a gas can that's been on my list for a long time. I haven't gotten that yet, but I think it's important to keep extra gas. Or keep your gas tank full if you can. But again, if the computers go down and you're not able to use your car. So anyway, I'm storing my stuff in there. I have watched a woman on TikTok talk about what happened in Texas last year as she experienced it. So a tent is a really great investment because you can even pitch it in your house if your heat goes out. But like I said, I do have a couple other solar generators, and those can run lights and like USB plugs, so I could charge my phone on that with solar. I also have like a 12-volt generator system that has 3 of the AC/DC plugins, so it's like you can plug in the computer, we could watch TV. And a lot of those things will charge with your car battery, a solar panel, or your plug-in into your house, your electrical. So, you know, those are things that are a little bit more pricey. I think the solar generator that I have with the USB was about $50, but the bigger generator I have was closer to 200. So, those are ways. I've also bought a couple extra solar panels that can do like tablets and phones or littler items like that. Those are good to keep. What else? I think I talked about the dehydrator. Yeah, and the vacuum pack, or the vacuum seal. I got the vacuum sealer with the bags and the oxygen absorbers for less than $30 altogether. So if you have that, I would advise it. Also, the water tablets are really important. If you can't access clean water, you can always boil your water, so that would take a fire or a stove or some sort of propane gas, something like that. But water tablets can clean the water. If you live by a natural water source, you can get that water and then drop a tablet to make it drinkable. Or you can get the life straws. I haven't invested in those yet, but I probably will. Also, I've seen a lot of folks talking about the Mylar blankets. So when I started prepping in 2016, the Mylar blankets and the water tablets were the first 2 things I bought. And so yeah, I would totally advise getting those things. Really just listen to what folks are saying. I'm just talking in my little corner. You want to make sure that what you do have is manageable to carry if you're in that situation, but more than likely the situations that we see coming up for us are probably like what happened in Texas last year, or like some sort of natural disaster, or weather related. I would just be weary of the rhetoric around dark winter that we're hearing from the president and other politicians. If you haven't looked into that or just deemed it as a conspiracy theory, I would highly recommend you doing a Google search. It's an operation that's been put in place a long time. And again, if you're one of those folks that doesn't think that the government would do that, then again, you are a small majority of the global population who have experienced that by the US government. We can talk about that in a different video. Anyway, rope. So like ropes and tarps, a tent. You know, if you're just staying in your house, if you're able to stay in your house, again, just look around. But my advice would be to put things together in a bag or an area that you can easily go to. Again, I like those little bags because I can kind of grab and go. If I don't need something, you know, I don't need to bring it. I also got one of those camelbacks. And I would really highly recommend starting at the Dollar Tree. If you're starting, I would highly recommend starting at the Dollar Tree or your local thrift stores. I was able to find one of those camelback backpacks without the water thing in it at the thrift store for like $6. So I just had to buy the water container that can go in that, which of course I would want to buy a new one of those anyway. So altogether, I think that water thing to put in it was like $11. So just if you're just starting, start with things that are necessary: lighters, matches. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your basic human rights, so food, water, heat, shelter, and then things like being comfortable and warm, and all of those things are on after that, right? And again, as you prepare, you're gonna feel more ready for whatever. You're not gonna have to be in that state of panic. You're not gonna have to be in that rat race of going to the store and freaking the fuck out because they don't have what you're looking for. And we know that's coming because it's already happening. So please be prepared. Please do what you can for yourself and your close, folks around you, your community, and know what the folks around you bring to the table as well as what you bring to the table, and be willing to share and barter and build that trust. That's a really important part of prepping, is having other folks that you can, you don't have to have everything because other folks do. Um, so I don't know. I hope this is helpful. Let me look at my notes. I made a lot of notes. Yeah, I mean, the goal of prepping is, self-reliance, community care, sustainability, and surviving, like, with your best odds in your favor, right? Like Hunger Games, may the odds ever be in your favor. Something I like to say is expect and prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's really about not running on your last nerve or on adrenaline, because that's not sustainable, and that will be detrimental to the situation at another level besides what you're having to deal with within the crisis. So yeah, I mean, I really hope that this is helpful. I don't know if it was. I hope it helps. If you want more clarity or more information, if you'd like to receive a list of kind of a checklist of things that I've done and prepared for, I'm totally down. My email is happyhealingessentials@gmail.com. You can just write me an email or comment below this video, and I will gladly email you a prepping list that I've used. And also know that your own situation is your own situation. So what I'm sharing with you is what works best for me. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work best for you. But I just want to let you know that it's okay to prepare. It's in your best interest, and it's in the best interest of your survival. And it's not this weird outdoorsy, like, never gonna happen thing. Like, it's really important, especially as a parent, to prepare for the inevitable. Again, hoping for the best, but also not pretending like this shit can't happen to you. It can. So I think, I don't know. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I can share links to some of the things that I've gotten. I think another thing that we're just preparing for this season is I'm stocking up on some medicine and natural medicines, like remedies and things, especially with, living in the midst of this pandemic. Having those things on hand is a really good idea, in my opinion. And yeah, I really hope that this helped you. I hope that you can see the importance in doing this and preparing yourself. And I hope that you can start doing what you can. Please don't spend your entire paycheck on shit you're not going to use. Please don't hoard resources from others. Please don't go to every store that you can think of and get whatever you can. That's not what this is about. It's about getting the things that you need to survive. Again, your basic human needs. It's not a comfortable situation. It's literal survival. And if you'd like more information on what that distinction is, hit me up. I can share. I probably will do a video on that. But yeah, I hope this helps you all. I'm sending a lot of love out there. I know it's a hard time to be alive, but also know that you're on this planet at this time for a reason. And I am really happy that you came to this video, and if you'd like to see more, just let me know. I'm down to share. I'm down to show you guys some things, and what it looks like for me, if that would be helpful. All right, thank you so much.